Have faith, believe in your source. Have faith.
Welcome to Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs, the podcast that dives deep into the stories of trailblazers who shape our world. Our co-host, Lulu Benavides, is a seasoned entrepreneur in the beauty industry, is a photographer, artist, and the proud owner of Lulu's The Salon in Galveston, Texas. Our other co-host, Sue Krokonis Hanson, is a visionary in the entrepreneurial world with years of experience in business innovation and development. Together, they bring you insights, inspiration, and the journeys of remarkable individuals who have made their mark. And with that, let's get started. Bonnie Bonadeo is a dynamic speaker, coach, author, and podcaster with over 30 years of experience in the beauty industry. As the founder of SOS Salon Coaching and Training, the SOS Small Biz Success Podcast, and the SOS Leadership Academy, Bonnie is dedicated to helping beauty professionals and small businesses create powerful, values-driven connections with both in real life and online. With a background as a licensed cosmetologist, story brand train guide, and emotional intelligence business and life coach, Bonnie brings a unique blend of creativity and strategy to her coaching. She is also a 7-time best-selling international author, committed to guiding leaders in discovering their gifts, building confidence, and mastering communication. Essential keys to running a successful business and living a life you love. In addition to her work as director of Intrigue Salon, Bonnie's passion lies in empowering individuals to find clarity, connect authentically, and lead with purpose. When she's not coaching, training, or leading, you'll find Bonnie sailing the seas with her fiancé Jeff South aboard their boat, Better Days. Today, we're excited to dive into her story, insights, and expertise on leadership, branding, and creating lasting success. Please welcome in Bonnie Bonadeo.
Hi, so I'm Sue Krokonis Hanson, and I'm with Bonnie Bonadeo today, who's just such an esteemed colleague and wealth of knowledge. We're feeling a little poorly because our co-host, Lulu Benavides, unfortunately had a bad case of laryngitis and the terrible respiratory thing that everybody seems to have. So Lulu, hoping you feel better real soon. But I'm excited to dig into this with Bonnie. And part of what we try to do on our podcast is not just talk about the person's career, but also to kind of put the spotlight on the person. So Bonnie, if you would for us, will you just introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us where you come from and your background and sort of what led you to this journey that you find yourself in now?
Sure, of course. And thanks for having me on, Sue. And Lulu, I definitely want you to feel better, and I'm sorry that we're missing out on you today. So, well, like a lot of people's stories, I didn't ever think I was going to be in the hair industry, but when I realized in high school that I wasn't very happy with school, I panicked thinking I was going to have to go through college and do 4 years of something and just stay in that space, and that really scared me. I always wanted to be a lawyer. I always felt like I'd be a good lawyer because I could argue really well. And then all of a sudden I was sitting at this, so I was just like a sophomore at the time, and I was at this kind of neighborhood event, maybe it was a holiday memorial or something like that. And these two gals were they were so vibrant, they were so happy, they were giggly, and there was just this energy around them. And I found out that they were hairdressers. And I thought, look how happy they are. And they looked good. And I thought, maybe I'll go to hair school. And so I checked into it, and sure enough, it was an opportunity I could do through high school. So I left my junior and senior year and ended up going into beauty college. I didn't ever think I was a creative person either, Sue. I always thought that I was just more structured and disciplined in that sense. But I found a level of creativity that was not like drawing or painting in the industry, and started out that way. Mm-hmm. When I got in, as you know, back in that day, there wasn't a lot of education, there wasn't a lot of skill training. And so I felt very, very scared to kind of keep venturing further into this industry as new trends were coming out. And I wanted to be a part of the change, not a part of the problem. And that's when I went and kind of worked for distributors, manufacturers. Mm-hmm. I wanted to learn to be better at it, and discovered that the business side of the industry was really more up my alley. And that led me down the path path of manufacturers, working for the Association for PBA, and then, of course, starting my own coaching and training business for the industry. And so here we are today, and it's been over 40 years since I've been a licensed cosmetologist. And although I don't necessarily have my hands in hair anymore, I'm still in the salon, every week with my fiance, Jeff, who owns a salon here in Atlanta, Georgia, Intrigue Salon, and then coaching and training and working on leadership and business strategies with my clients on the other end. And now I have this perfect full circle happy medium with it all.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I do think that it's got more challenging, not less challenging, because schools are requiring less hours. So many stylists are encouraged to go directly into some type of suite renting when they haven't had an opportunity to be mentored and really learn the business. So there's certainly, a niche for that. So I guess, so it's interesting to me, and maybe you've covered this a little bit, but to go from a stylist to then working for distributors and manufacturers to now being a speaker, a podcaster, a coach. I mean, how did it just happen organically, or was it something that you developed a strategy for, or, a lot of times in the beauty industry, it's trial and error.
It's true. You are right on target with all of that. I think that, there's this evolution. Our industry definitely got more fragmented. There were more problems than solutions available for people. And I just had to keep reinventing myself, because the first business that I started out doing after I left kind of what you'd consider to be kind of more of that corporate beauty industry environment was an agency. And I was linking quality educators and talent and artists to people that needed them. So whether it was they needed a photo shoot done, they needed somebody for a hair show classroom, they needed somebody for an in-salon training, I was kind of like the go-to person that made these connections for people. Now, mind you, that was before social media. So when social media came out, it was really easy for all of us to connect and self-promote in a sense.
Yeah.
So I had to reinvent myself, and that business necessarily, although it still produced an opportunity for me, it was fighting the technology that was coming out today. So I'm like, that's not working. And then what I discovered is that people aren't very good at self-promotion. I'm not even good at self-promotion. I'm better at promoting other people and supporting them than me promoting myself. So here we are, 20 years later, and we're all in the same space of we still don't know how to find stylists. We still don't know how to find new clients. We think social media is the number one answer to all of that when it's not. And there's a lot more work to it and a lot more technology that we have to invest in learning and knowing in order to still run a small business that can be successful today. And again, it's all time, evolution, investment of, your time, your money, your resources, and your energy to do all of that. And there's no one quick fix to success today.
Right. It's interesting to me, aside, Lulu and I have known each other for more than 40 years. And we're born on exactly the same day in the same year. So I always call Lulu my twin. And my twin and I have been in the industry for almost 50 years. And as you said, we've had to reinvent ourselves many, many times. One of the things that I find really interesting about what you do is the new terminology. So I know that Lulu has taken some of your classes. She's been very impressed with what you do. I'm kind of looking at it from the outside in. So when I was looking at what you do, there were things that kind of intrigued me. And I had salons. I was a stylist and educator, worked for a manufacturer for 17 years. So when I hear certain words, they just tweak me. So when I heard that you really specialize in story brand training guides, And I thought, boy, I would really like her to explain to me what that means.
Yeah. I'm not certified with them anymore, but I went through their certification.
Okay.
And it was really, and it's a great, I mean, you could read the books. Definitely read the Story Brand books. He's got a couple of them out there now, and they really will help to streamline and make sense to things. So this is kind of what I say is, do you have clarity on who you are, your values, your business, your purpose, what you offer, and who you offer it to? And if you can't answer those questions in a very streamlined elevator speech approach, then this type of training or this book will help you to be able to refine that. And that, you can see how much there is competition out there.
Right.
So when you can kind of create more of this clarity to it, and so it's whether it's your website, whether it's your social media presence, whether it's your bio, whether it's, how you're putting yourself out there speaking. You've got to have more clarity, because if you don't have clarity, then you have confusion. And what we have is too many people trying to wear too many hats or saying that they're experts in too many things, and then it just dilutes the funnel. And so and people are afraid to narrow that vision and thinking that that's all they're going to do. But once you narrow the vision and you get a certain type of person coming in, you can expand it and add another dimension, and another dimension. And that's kind of like what we did back in the day, right?
Yeah.
We specialized in perms. We weren't doing highlights with foils, but then it came on. And then now, to learn all these things, to be successful in this business is overwhelming, because there's a lot more to learn.
Yeah. And I can see that your coaching helps stylists and salon owners focus, because I do think we're in a creative industry, and the more creative people are, sometimes they hop. So they take 2 cutting classes and now they're on to something else. And then they take 3 color classes and then they're on to something else. And then they think, oh, social media must be the answer. And so you have a broad base of knowledge, but you're a master of none. And by you helping people to really focus on their personal brand and what they want to accomplish, I can see that type of mentoring would be really valuable in today's.
Because you've got to define it. You've got to define it and narrow it down. And then that's how people want to connect with you. So whether it's team or whether it's clients or whether it's community, then that's how people kind of jump on, because they see a natural a connection and alignment to what you're offering. And it's those values that you stand on. It's that foundation that you stand on.
And, maybe it's just me, but I feel like it's post-COVID for sure. But in general, people tend to be more scattered. They're scattered professionally, they're scattered emotionally, they're scattered with the overwhelming information that we're bombarded daily. And so, when I see that you're an emotional coach as well as a business coach, I'm curious as to how you work with clients in that realm.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of research coming out from COVID as well. And, the research is stating a couple really important things. Is that, one, we accelerated technology at a rate faster during COVID than any other time in history. And partly because we were in survival mode, and we have to. Now, the other side of survival mode was that being in survival mode meant that we were in a grieving process. What we had, we might have lost. I mean, business, people in our lives, relationships, like we just lost a lot. And they're stating that we're in a space of depression and frustration, and we are stuck there and can't get out of it. So here we are 5 years later, kind of seeing some of the research coming down, and you can see it in society. You can see it in the way that we're behaving, the lack of growth that we're having, the fear attached to taking risks. And the one thing that we have to be able to do is to start being more compassionate and empathic to ourselves and others.
Yes.
And until we learn this skill set of being able to do that, we're going to continue to be fear-based. We're going to continue to be divided. We're going to continue to not being able to access the quality people and the quality relationships and the quality work into our lives.
If you were to say, maybe not necessarily on the people you're coaching, but in general, what do you see as some of the number one challenges that are facing stylists and salon owners these days, other than, can't find help, not enough people, all the things that have become buzzwords in our business. But I do think there are other challenges that,
I mean, for me, it's leadership. Leadership is the foundational piece. If I'm confident in how I'm communicating as a leader, if I'm speaking in a way that is addressing next level opportunities, if I'm marketing my business in a way that is solving problems for people, then I'll naturally grow. There's just no bones about it, right? But we're not taking on leadership in a way that is making a difference. And we're trying to still run things in an archaic way that doesn't exist anymore. We're trying to empower people in a way that is not motivating to them anymore.
Right.
And, or we're putting so much structure around things that there's no flex or give, and people don't want that either.
Yes.
They want freedom and flexibility.
Right.
Our industry has to start being able to be more flexible in what it looks like to grow moving forward. But leadership is kind of like, it's the foundation of everything.
Yes.
And people don't communicate very well. And part of the communication on the other side, the coin flipped, is listening. You see that most people are not good listeners.
Right.
Then they're not good communicators. And then they're always going to have drama and problems that are going to present themselves to where they think they should be and how they think they should grow.
I feel very strongly about what you just said, because every good stylist has a repertoire of skills. But I think one of the most important skills is the ability to communicate with that customer and to find out what her expectations are. And so often in our business, people think communicating is talking at the client. The real secret to communication is listening and knowing what questions to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like I say, communication is listening with a level of curiosity, and curiosity is asking the right questions to be able to narrow down options that the client can then choose one over the other. And when you get a client that's choosing one over the other, you have a transaction that's happening in either scenario. Now it could be a no. There could be the third option of it. It's just a flat out no. But most of the time they're open to it. It's just narrowing it down to where it makes sense to the client to say yes. Yes to option one, yes to option two, or maybe not at this time, but at another time I'll say yes to it.
Yeah. I do also think that what you just said is a really valid point, because, we've all heard a million classes on how to pre-book clients and how to build your clientele and how to do that. But I always approached it from expectations. So I always want to give the client one thing that she could look forward to on her next visit, to think about, just something to think about when she comes back. And planting the seeds. If you're going to have a big harvest, you got to plant seeds. And
that's beautiful.
I think also, Bonnie, I really like what you were saying about where the industry is, because it would, at the risk of sounding like an old dinosaur, and I don't think it's just young people, but from COVID to now, we've lost a lot of the interaction face-to-face with people. And like any skill, when you're not practicing those skills, they get rusty. And I feel like because clients are in a different position, clients are spreading their haircuts longer, are not knowing what fashion stage they're in. So the ability to communicate with the client is critically important today. But because we're so tied to our devices and that type of thing, maybe we're not using them in the right way. Maybe, hooking up with a coach, learning some listening skills, working on communication, might be time better spent than watching TikTok. I'm not anti-TikTok, but I'm just saying, if you're going to have a device in your hand, maybe you should use it for education versus entertainment.
And there's some danger to that too, because everybody's an expert. So, you go onto these salon forums and somebody has a problem, and 99.9% of the feedback that you're getting back is bad advice.
Right.
So it's like, okay, we're just repeating the things that we need to do. And I try to stay off of those areas.
Yes.
But every now and then I'll go on there and I'll post a question that will create a level of curiosity. What did you educated the client instead of providing empathy for the client. Like I just saw this one today, and I'm scrolling just like anybody else is, right? But I just saw this one today where it was like the client was very unhappy. Her red had already faded, and the stylist went right into educating the client on, well, the molecules are bigger, and that's why red doesn't stay in. But there was never once, I'm sorry to hear that. Let's figure out a plan that is going to have it last longer for you. That's what the client wants to hear. But instead, we're too busy trying to give them the answer based on our expertise instead of the client. The client does not need to be educated on the larger molecule. The client is looking for a solution, and your job is to be able to kind of like access what that plan is that's going to have this color be perfect, last longer, and and recommend all the things that are going to make that happen for her. And she's going to say yes and buy into that way more than, well, I guess I can't do red anymore because the molecules are too big.
Totally agree. Hairdressers are into process. Clients are into results. They want to know, again, everything that you're saying. I think clients come to the salon today for two reasons. One is they expect to walk out the door with a good service, or they wouldn't be there. But they also come for the experience. They come for the experience. So if the experience isn't enjoyable, if you don't feel like I finally found that expert I've been looking for, then the experience falls short. And that's from greeting to exit. That whole thing has to be seamless.
And nobody said this career path was easy. Nobody said it was easy. But you can be smart about it and be highly successful in this industry. Whether it's you're still at the chair or whether you're running a salon with multiple people in it, there's ways to be able to do this and work smarter, not harder, because this is not an easy industry to do. We're very high touch, we're very low tech, but we have to start getting more high tech.
Right.
Because as a small business, you have to find those resources that are going to help you maintain that level of success in business.
Exactly. And everything that you're saying fits so beautifully with another question I had in the back of my head, because I have to position this correctly. Just because someone is the biggest book in the salon or is an excellent hairdresser does not mean they're going to be successful as an owner / manager, because it's an entirely different skill set.
It is, but it's a skill set that you can learn.
Exactly. And
that's just like learning hair. You can learn this skill set, and that's really where I'm putting the majority of my energy today, is helping people understand that leadership is a framework. When you learn the framework, then you can adapt and be flexible within the framework to make it authentic and accountable.
Correct.
And I have online programs or coaching programs, live coaching programs like this where we're together. Online, on live, or I have virtual programs that can start giving you that foundational thing. That's the great part about it. You can learn to be great at this.
Well, my one piece of advice for anybody out there that's listening and saying, yeah, I think this is what I really need, you need to vet your experts. So someone like yourself, Bonnie, who started in beauty school and has gone all through all the ranks and has the bird's eye view to all the different segments. An expert is not somebody who just has been in the industry for 2 years and taken a couple of classes and is online. You have to find somebody that has depth of knowledge like yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Because I do feel that that's part of the noise out there. I mean, anything you go to do today, you want to buy one thing online and the options are so vast and so, that you get lost in the minutia. So
it is. You're diluted really fast, and there's a lot of noise out there, and so you have to kind of decide what it is that you need, and then find the expert in that field and make the investment. And sometimes it's money, sometimes it's time, sometimes it's a combination of both.
In my past life, I had several salons and a beauty school. But one of the things I used to tell people when they came to beauty school is when you graduate from school, you're only graduating from your freshman year. Mm-hmm. You really need to give it 3 years developing your skills, learning your craft, building your business. And if you give yourself to the industry 100% for 4 years, it'll take care of you for the rest of your life.
That is so true.
Yeah.
But I find that people find it difficult to put that time investment into it, but that hasn't changed. I don't care, when you started in this industry, that part of it hasn't changed. There's not a way to accelerate it any faster because there's still so much learning in the first 3 years of building up your confidence, building up your emotional skill levels, your social skill levels, your technical skill levels. Mm-hmm. And then you become intelligently skilled to be able to kind of put it all together and go, I get it. Now I'm gonna work it. Yeah. Right. Now I'm gonna work it. Yeah.
And gets back to your first point, which I think you made very eloquently, and that is, it's better to achieve one thing than to try and hop around and achieve everything. So, maybe you take a year. Obviously, if you're in a salon, you have to have a variety of services.
Do it all. Say yes to it all and then refine what you like.
Yeah. But you might say, this year, I am going to really concentrate on my people skills and my listening skills, my communication skills. Next year, I'm going to try and become a really advanced hair cutter. I really want to be able to achieve whatever anybody in my chair sits down to do. Same thing with color. Yeah. Not all hair colors are equal. Not all products are equal. Not all techniques are equal. So, there's an abundance of things for us to learn in this industry.
Even for us. Look at how much we've evolved.
I'm going to put in a plug from, my friend and co-host Lulu Benavides at Lulu's The Salon in Galveston. Lulu is a lifelong learner, and she attacks it. She's been doing this, running salon. This year I'm going to master photography, and she's all in.
And she did. And she won awards on it.
Yeah, in a coiffure, she wins the photo contest. Art. I really want to not just do art behind the chair. I want to take art courses. Now I'm mastering tech. I have to get into tech, but she is always investing in her education. I think when you look at very successful people in our industry, that's one of the keys. They're lifelong learners.
I agree. And I love the expression that you did on, you get out of school and you're really still the freshman. And there is still more schooling, but now it's hands-on. Now it's, on the job. You're living it, breathing it.
Right.
And learning it, and that's the best way to be able to become the expert and the successful, skilled person in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, can you give us an idea of where people could find out more about you, from, where you are in Atlanta to how they find you online, how they can follow you? Because I'm sure there's probably quite a few people out there who we've piqued their interest by interviewing you.
Well, I hope so, and thank you. I again am thrilled by the invite to be on here. Yeah, I'm gonna do two ways here. Obviously, you can find me on social media, and that's Bonnie Bonadeo in multiple platforms and everything. But here's what I really want people to do is I want them to be able to evaluate where they're at right now. So if you go to SOS Leader Quiz, sosleaderquiz.com, that's kind of a little quiz that will kind of set you up to determine where you fall into your level of leadership skills. And then that's going to be that first step to being able to say, all right, I might be new or an emerging leader, or I'm a very in the middle collaborative leader, which is about 80% of where people fall in. But if you want to take that next level skill set, then you want to get to that level of transformative leader. Mm-hmm. And that's space that I want to really help people get. There's a lot more to it than just saying, oh, well, I'm not leading people, but you're leading your life, you're leading business, you're leading clients. There's a lot to it from an emotional intelligence standpoint. It's not just about work. It's also about who you want to be in life.
Right.
So take the sosleaderquiz.com, and that'll lead you right into everything else I've got to offer. You can go to sosleadershipacademy.com and you'll find more information there. It's that funnel. It's that starting funnel to connect with me. And of course, everything else is in my bios on my social media account that you can track as well.
Sure, of course. I think that's great. And I would just say to people that leadership isn't a skill that you learn once. We are all reinventing ourselves on a daily basis. So maybe at one time I had good leadership skills, but in this new world, maybe I'm confused. Maybe I'm not doing as good a job as I thought I was. So even if you've been doing this for a number of years, you have a successful salon, I think there'd be a lot to benefit by just taking the quiz for yourself. Just kind of I never thought of that.
We've got generational differences. We have a lot of variables in it now, and so it is a good place to start. It's a very simple quiz. It'll take you 2 minutes to do. You're going to get immediate results, and then you'll also get a follow-up email that will provide some suggestions of ways that you can lead with more empathy, compassion, and accountability for people. So, yeah, easy.
I think it's very hard to be successful in our business if you're not happy with yourself,
or you fear taking risks, or communicating with confidence. Yeah. It will definitely defer that level of success that you can have if you're challenged by some of those things. And I want to help people be so comfortable in these conversations that they just come out so naturally, and that people walk away empowered and inspired by the conversation, not walking away and calling you a toxic salon owner. We want to avoid that.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting to me. Some things have to come with a reshaping of our fundamental belief system. So I'll tell a little story on myself. When I was first in the business, and we all have had it, a client who's not happy and would come in with something that maybe she wasn't thrilled about. How'd you like your last haircut? Well, I really didn't. I took that very personal. It was like and they're like weights on your back because you're building up these things. But as I got older, I had great fortune to work with some wonderful, very successful people. And I realized that it wasn't about me. It was about the client and how she's seeing herself and what her perception is. Not take it personal, to turn that around and be the person with the solution. Yeah. And the type of coaching you're talking about doing, I can just see you building those building blocks, for people and helping them to gain that level of maturity, when some of it just goes back to our DNA and how we were thought to process and how we take things, and you sort of have to develop,
Yeah, we're ever growing and ever evolving, and I learn new things all the time. I have a coach, all the time as well. I mean, we're never going to reach that perfect state.
Right.
But if we're willing to be, quality learners and invest in ourselves over time, then you're going to see the difference and the connection that it can make to that level of success that you measure yourself up against.
Yeah. Well, Bonnie, I want to, thank you for doing this, because I think I don't want to say more needed, but it's certainly necessary today in our world and in our industry. So, thank you for the time and the energy and the material that you've developed. We have another little thing we do on Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs, because our listeners do really like to get that sort of behind the curtain look at our guests.
Yeah, certainly.
So we've developed this little quick fire thing, which in the beginning we just tried to do it to get to know more about people. And what we found out is our people love it because they get a lot out of it. So if you would play along, I've got
Sure.
a few questions. Yeah. And we always say, it really should be what comes to the top of mind, because often what pops in your head is the correct answer. So are you ready to get
I'm ready.
Okay. So here's the first question. Who do you follow for inspiration?
Wow, that's a tough one. I like the diversity of where I'm at. So, if it's somebody that's into meditation, somebody's into baking, boating and sailing, like those are my interests. So I find myself really following a lot of people in that area. And then, right now I'm collaborating with 2 other coaches in the industry. And although we know each other, we don't know each other deeply yet in this collaboration, like you and Lulu collaborating together, right? So I'm following them, Bridget Sobis and Nikki Lee, because there's this level of I want to learn from them as much as other people can learn from them. And then I know that in turn they're going to learn from me as well.
Yeah, good. So what's on your playlist?
A good one, classic rock, probably to start. It's nice because it's fun.
Yeah.
And old time hip hop, I love. And kind of no shoes radio when I'm in my, boat sailing calm space.
Yeah, I hear you on that one, because that's part of my favorite thing is being on the water and just
being on the water. It's my love.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite book or a book that you're reading now that you'd like to share with the audience?
I'm reading Unicorn Team right now by Jen Kem. I worked with her in a coaching capacity for a little over a year, and she's a powerhouse. The woman's a powerhouse, and no matter what industry you're in, there's something that you can learn from her. But she's finally taking a lot of what she's done through her coaching and put it into a book. It's so far it's been really great, because she labels and markets things in a way that you can remember it and apply it. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah. What do you do to live your best life?
Well, right now, Jeff and I have a sailboat that's in St. Martin, or in the Caribbean islands, and so we are as often as we can on the sailboat and enjoying our space. That puts me in the water,
Yeah.
and we're on the beach, and that's just something. Ideally, I'd love to be able to find treasure and never come back, and treasure hunt under the water and on top of the water and on the beaches forever.
Yeah. I'm always interested to see if successful people like yourself have a favorite motto or quote.
I've always used this one, and I've certainly evolved a little bit from it, but I'm going to share it anyway. So it's to, at any moment, to be able to give up who you are for who you could become. Because I think we hang on tightly to things, and then, that's kind of evolved where who I want to become is somebody that leads with my heart, but that I still have that edge of accountability. So I'm not just going to give it away, but I'm going to give it away with expectations that you've grown, or you can share it now with somebody else.
Right. Yeah. I like those quotes. They're great. They're really great.
Thank
Yeah. Well, I feel so bad that our time is kind of come
It's up
to an end.
already?
Yeah, I'm hoping that maybe at some point in time you could come back and be a guest when,
Of course.
Lulu is with us, and she always has great insight and great questions, and I think we would love to have you back. And
I would love that. And yes, and to be able to spend some time with Lulu again as well.
yeah, she's just a love, and we love Lulu. So, well, thank you again for being on Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs. And I like to say happy trails. We'll see you down the road.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, what an episode. That wraps up another exciting edition of Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you're leaving inspired and ready to chase your dreams. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode over at youtube.com/Artists, Icons, Entrepreneurs, as well as Facebook at Lulu Benavides, on IG at Lulu Benavides, at Evolve Hair Solutions as well. And don't forget to visit our website at lulubenavides.com and evolvehairsolutions.com to stay updated. Until next time, keep dreaming big, creating boldly, and making your mark on the world. Thanks for listening, and take care, everyone.